entering the veil. Entering the veil. It's the bread of adversity. We made the whole. What do you do when you realize the world's so cold? There's a path called righteousness, but it's littered with snares. Approach with caution, and we feel it's God's hands to break. Falling away, got us going astray. We in the valley of decision. Help us find our way. My people destroyed for a lack of knowledge. How can that be? Mama spent 30 grand on college. The inner man in us seeks for greatness, but truth is like a gem hidden in the field. It's evasive. Who will prevail to open up the book? Who will excel into the veil and take a look? To those that have an ear, let them hear. Blindness and part is happening to us, but clear vision is near, man. We are entering the veil. Take hold, we are entering the veil.
Thank you for joining us, and welcome to Entering the Veil. The veil represents the separation between the holy and the most holy. Although the veil was torn in two, a separation still exists to this day due to our falling away from the sound doctrine originally delivered unto us via the Holy Bible. What this means is there is now a spiritual veil over the eyes and ears of the general public, causing a separation where none should exist. We are committed to helping guide as many people as possible along the spiritual path of entering the veil.
Shalom. My name is Isaac Ben Israel, and I would like to thank you for tuning in to Entering the Veil. The topic of discussion today is Yahweh's calendar system. Now, we've gotten so used to the way that man has set things up that we don't even give it a thought that these things do not coincide with the things that the creator of all things has set up for us to walk in. Now, when we deal with the holy days, or what we know as holy days, we have to be able to count the days according to the way Yahweh has set things up. Now, according to what the major religions have set up, the holiest day in Christianity is Easter. Now, Easter is a movable feast because it is not on the same day from year to year. And we have to ask ourselves, if it is based on an event that took place at one time, how is it that the celebration of that event varies from year to year? And what we find out when we dig deep into these things is we find out that the day of Easter is counted by the first Sunday after the first full moon of spring. So this lets you know that it changes. So then we have to deal with the fact that this is based on the sun S-U-N, not the rebirth of the sun S-O-N. And these things were already in place by the heathen before they adopted Christianity. So we have to decide whether or not we're going to deal with these things in truth and in righteousness. And for us to do that, we have to understand the way that Yahweh has set things up. So the first thing we have to do is figure out what the ordination of a day is. And that might seem simple, but you're going to find that once we read what is set up in our Holy Bibles, we're going to find out that that does not match what we call a day in these days and times. We're going to start reading at Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1. It says, "In the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep." All right, so we see that there was darkness first. "And the spirit of Elohim moved upon the face of the waters." Verse 3, "And Elohim said, let there be light. And there was light. And Elohim saw the light, that it was good. And Elohim divided the light from the darkness. And Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night." So it said it was darkness first. He separated the night from the day, so the night comes before the day. And it says, "And the evening and the morning were the first day. Now you see how we count that? How it's different? It says the evening. So the darkness and then the morning is the day. So this is how the first day was reckoned. Now what we have gotten used to is we have been told that our day changes at 12 o'clock midnight while we're asleep. We are able to see the days change when the sun goes down. That is the ending of one day and the beginning of another. If we just think back, we can, this is the explanation given here in the Old Testament. If we go to the New Testament and remember the Messiah being on that torture stake, what people call a cross, we find that day was called Good Friday. And what happened? We were told that he had to come off of that torture stake because as the sun was going down, it was nearing the Sabbath. So we still see then what happened. Friday afternoon, Good Friday, the next day was Saturday. That was the Sabbath. So we see he counted the days that way in the Old Testament. And in the New Testament, we find the same thing. The day was getting ready to change as the sun was going down on Friday. And we also see a verification of Saturday being the Sabbath day right there in the New Testament. So now let's deal with the beginnings of our months. Let's go to Exodus chapter 12, and I'm going to start that at verse 1. It says, "And Yahweh spake unto Moshe and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you." Now, is he saying that did this happen in January? It said that this is the first month. So we're going to see the difference between what man has set up and what the creator of all things has set up. Verse 3, "Speak you unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month, that they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an household." So now we see what's going on here. What happens? What are they doing with this lamb? This is Passover. So it's letting you know that the month where Passover is the beginning of the year that Yahweh has set up. So we have to use some common sense here and ask ourselves, is anything growing January 1st? This is the beginning when everything starts. So consider, when is Passover? It is between March and April because it doesn't go directly according to the calendar system that we use today. What it goes by is the new moon, and we're going to get deeper into that here shortly. But what man has given us is January 1st as the beginning of the year. But what you'll find out is these were gods that man, the heathen, already worshipped before they had adopted Christianity. So January is named after the pagan two-headed god Janus. It is the only god that is said to be able to look into the past and the future. This is why we have participated in mock rituals on what we call watch night. And when it's counting down to that time, to the beginning of the heathen year, we were told to look behind us. And as they counted down to the new year, we were then told to turn around, and we just did a mock ritual, turning one way and then turning the other way. We had just performed a mock ritual of the two-headed god Janus. Okay, so that is the heathen system of reckoning the new year. Yahweh reckons that new year right when Passover is to be celebrated. And that is between March and April, according to the new moon. Now, what we see here is a true push to get away from the things that Yahweh has set up. Because what man did was we made fun of the people who followed Yahweh's calendar system. Because the people who would keep the new year according to Yahweh's setup were called April Fools. And we celebrated this as a holiday where we would go out and make fun or try to fool people. And it was okay to do that because this day was called April Fools. So the people who followed Yahweh's calendar system were called the April Fools. Now, this is something that we participated in, not understanding what it was. But when it comes down to the second coming of Christ, believe you me, you are going to have a desire to be an April Fool, because you are going to want something that separates you from the rest of the heathen system, all those who will willingly take that mark. You are going to definitely want to be sanctified or separated from all the rest of the people. But to do that, we must be able to understand the system that Yahweh has set up for us. Okay, now we're going to deal with the beginnings of our months. I'm going to read something to you in Numbers chapter 28, and I'm going to start at verse 11. It says, "And in the beginnings of your months, you shall offer a burnt offering unto Yahweh, 2 young bullocks and 1 ram, 7 lambs of the first year without spot." So what we see is there was a authorized gathering at the beginnings of the months. They were to gather together and make an offering unto Yahweh. Now I'm going to jump down to verse 14. It says, "And their drink offerings shall be an hin of wine unto a bullock." Now this says several things. We are told by those seeking their own righteousness that a man should not drink, when here the offerings are to be of wine. When you deal with how what people call communion is done, it's not supposed to be done with grape juice and a leavened cracker. That should be an unleavened cracker with wine, as the offerings are wine, not grape juice. It does make a difference. And the third part of an hen unto a ram, and the fourth part of a hen unto a lamb. This is the burnt offering of every month throughout the months of the year. So this lets you know that there was an authorized gathering at the beginning of every month. I'm going to read something else to you in Ezekiel, and I'm going to go to chapter 46, and we're going to read a little bit more about this gathering at the beginning of the months. We're going to start at verse 1. "Thus says Yahweh Elohim, the gate of the inner court that looks toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it shall be opened." So there's a gathering, of course, on the Sabbath. "And in the day of the new moon it shall be open." Now you say, what is a new moon? A new moon is a new month. What Yahweh has ordained is a lunar calendar system. That means it goes according to the moon, not according to the sun. Now remember what we said about the day of Easter. It is reckoned by the sun. This is completely opposite of what Yahweh has set up. So you have to ask yourself, who is the illuminated one, the one of light, who deals with the sun, S-U-N, and not the sun, S-O-N. Verse 2, "And the prince shall enter by the way of the porch of that gate without, and shall stand by the post of the gate. And the priest shall prepare his burnt offering and his peace offerings, and he shall worship at the threshold of the gate." So people tell you you can worship on any day. It tells you that the gate is open on the Sabbath and is open on the new moon. And we see worship going on those days. Jump down to verse 3. "Likewise, the people of the land shall worship at the door of this gate before Yahweh in the Sabbaths and in the new moons." See, this is a direct ordination by Yahweh that we are to worship on the Sabbaths and on the new moon, not the day of resurrection. This is the day that it was ordained. Verse 4, and it says, "And the burnt offering that the prince shall offer unto Yahweh in the Sabbath day shall be 6 lambs without blemish and a ram without blemish. So this is the new moon. The new moon is a new month. And as we get down into things, in 1 Samuel chapter 20 and verse 18, it tells you about King David keeping this new moon. It says, then Jonathan said to Dawid, tomorrow is the new moon, and you shall be missed, because your seat will be empty. And in Psalms 81 verse 3, it says, blow up the trumpet in the new moon. The trumpet was used to gather the children of Israel. When the trumpet was blown, that was the beginning of Holy Convocation that brought all the children of Israel together. So blowing up the trumpet in the new moon means call a sound for the people to gather together. So this is what these things mean. So we have to understand that this new moon was a new month. Now, if you go to your Farmer's Almanac or look at sites such as moonconnection.com and all of these astronomer sites, you're going to read how they count the new moon. And the new moon is a totally dark moon, okay? Now, looking at this new moon, some people will count that being the sliver once you see some kind of light on the moon. Well, it's not new anymore. Remember, in the beginning of the day, it started in darkness. In the beginning, it starts in darkness and then it grows. If you look at the solar system from an outward view, you'll see that it makes more sense that the new moon is done in complete darkness, because when that new moon happens, there's a complete alignment of between the earth, the sun, and the moon. We're talking about a complete line that is order. Remember, Yahweh is an Elohim of order. He is not an Elohim of confusion. So that new moon is a new month and it's completely aligned. That's why it's totally dark. It is totally dark. This is the beginning of things. Now, we have gotten used to the pagan setup of the monthly system, where we have our January is the beginning of the month. Then you have, your February, your March. All of these things were named after the pagan gods and the rulers of the heathen system. And to clearly point that out, if you look at the last months of the year, we have October, November, and then December. Now, October, we know about an octagon. An octagon has 8 sides, okay? Well, why is October the 10th month? November, novem, which is Latin, means 9. So why is it the 11th month? Then you have December, decim. When you do decimals, decimals all go on the 10 foundation. Decim means 10. So why is it the 12th month? So what people have to understand is the heathen system used to go according to Yahweh's system. Because consider that. If you actually take out the 2 months that were added for the Caesars, July and August for Julius and Augustus Caesar, then you get what? You get right back down to the count system of what was there before. Then the decim will match to being the 10th month. So what we like to do is say, well, if most people use this, then this is okay. Remember, there is a wide and broad path that leads to destruction, but there is a narrow path that leads to life, and few there be that follow thereat. Now, those are the words of the Messiah, not our words. And as we get to those things, ask yourself a question. How few people you hear on April 1st saying Happy New Year? Now, consider how many people on January 1st that you see come to you and say Happy New Year. Now you see how narrow that path is when it comes down to the people that follow the things that Yahweh has set up. Now, when we deal with this changing of time, we have a verification here in Scripture that these things were going to happen. If we read in the book of Daniel, chapter 7 and verse 25, it tells us about this great Babylonian system that would be set up, and the rulers of this Babylonian system, that they would make changes unto Yahweh's system. Daniel chapter 7 and verse 25 says, "And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time." So it lets you know that there would be a great amount of time that this false ruler of the people, as far as ecclesiastical or religious things goes, would be able to give this false sense of Yahweh's timing. And we have to understand all of these things that we've talked about, Yahweh has said over and over again about the Sabbath. But when Christianity was made the legal religion of Rome, Emperor Constantine and the popes changed the legal religious day. The day of the Sabbath was changed from Saturday to Sunday. That may seem like it was just one day off, but you have to understand in dealing with the adversary, the devil, that he is a fan of mirror images. And the Sabbath is the seventh day. Sunday is the first day. So that's the beginning. Okay? So what we see is an exact opposite. If you look in the mirror, the image that is in that mirror looks just like you. But if you raise your right hand, what you see in the mirror is actually on the left if you stand and look at it as if that was you. So it looks exactly like you, but the image is transposed. This is why when an ambulance is driving behind you, when you look in the mirror, you see it spelled ambulance. But if you walk up on that ambulance, it looks like it's spelled backwards. Well, they transposed it, they put it in a way backwards so that when you look at it in your mirror, you won't be confused. It will say ambulance so you know to pull over. Well, Lucifer is absolutely impeccable with giving us these mirror images of things that appear to be righteous in the setup, but it is actually completely wicked and goes to the exact opposite of what Yahweh has set up for us. So we see that the religious observance day of Saturday had been changed to Sunday, and we're going to read something. Let's go to Exodus chapter 20, and we're going to start that at verse 9 so we can see what Yahweh has to say on the matter. Now, remember, we were told to remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. We were told, even the Messiah says he talked about Moshe. Even when you deal with the situation of Lazarus, he said, if they will not hear Moses, it says, let them hear Moses. If they will not hear Moses, then they will not be persuaded, though one rose from the dead. See, Moshe even spoke about the coming of Yeshua. So they go hand in hand. And people believe that Yeshua came, Christ came, and nailed all of the things that Moshe had put in place to the cross. And what he did was fulfill, not nailed to the cross, he fulfilled the animal sacrifice because he became that perfect sacrifice. So no other sacrifice can be made at this particular time because he became that sacrifice. That did not nail, you cannot commit adultery. It did not nail all of these other things. All of those things have absolutely nothing to do with it. He fulfilled animal sacrifice. Okay, let's read Exodus chapter 20, and I'm going to start that at verse 8. It says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahweh your Elohim. In it you shall not do any work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger that is within your gates. So it tells you why. Not only does it say that the Sabbath day is the day that is set to be holy, it says 6 days shall you labor. Okay, but the seventh day is a day of rest. People say, well, I can worship on any day. No, it says rest. Okay, so it automatically says rest. If you rest every day, then you're lazy. You can't rest every day. You're supposed to work. The Bible itself says a man don't work, he don't eat. So you can't rest every day. It says 6 days must you work. The seventh day is a Sabbath of rest. Now, verse 11 is going to get specific in why he has set apart the seventh day. For in 6 days, Yahweh made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in the midst, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day, and hallowed it. So, it says we were made in his image. He rests on a Sabbath day. Why should we be resting on a different day than he is? If we were made in his image and he has set up things, remember the things that are set up in heaven are set up here on earth. So the things that were set up here on earth were an exact replica, not a mirror image, but an exact replica of what was set up in heaven. Remember the ideal prayer. Let it be done on earth as it is in heaven. So even when it comes to the setup of the temple, all of those things were given to us from the holy setup. If you read, there's a priest in heaven. It talks about Melchizedek being a priest of Salem, a priest of the holy city. So that means if there's priests, there's a rest day, there's holy days, there's feast days. All of these things that were given to us from heaven. These things are being kept in heaven. And we can verify that by reading Job chapter 1 and Job chapter 2. We find that there are holy days being kept in heaven. Now, I'm going to read something else to you. I'm going to go to Exodus chapter 31 and verses 12 through 18. Now, if you are just tuning in, then you don't hear of the fact that we're making all of these correlations jumping back from the Old Testament to the New Testament, because I know that people were told that we don't have to read the Old Testament, that all of that stuff is nailed to the cross, it's no longer valid. Well, no one has ever understood a book by starting in the middle of that book. You have to read the beginning of the book to even understand what's going on. So we have to go to the beginning of the book so that we will get a clear understanding of these things. Exodus chapter 31 and verse 12. And it says, and Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, speak you also unto the children of Israel, saying, verily, my Sabbaths you shall keep. For it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am Yahweh, that does sanctify you. You shall keep the Sabbath, therefore, for it is holy unto you. Everyone that defiles it shall surely be put to death. For whosoever does any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. 6 days may work be done, but in the seventh day is the Sabbath of rest, holy to Yahweh. So it's holy to Yahweh. Man has no right to change it. Whosoever does any work in the Sabbath, he shall surely be put to death. And it says, you have to observe this throughout your generations for a perpetual covenant. Perpetual means forever. Okay? So this was set as a perpetual covenant, which means that we were set to do these things forever. Now that we have gone through the setup of a day and a month and what Yahweh's holy Sabbath day is, now let's get to how to observe or count his feast days. Now, he has a holy setup. When we start reading this, you're going to think that I just went back and read the same thing. This is how many times Yahweh says it over and over about the Sabbath. I'm reading in a totally different place now. I'm about to go to Leviticus chapter 23. What we read before was in Exodus. But you're going to see the same thing said. But you're going to find when you deal with our people, you have to say the same thing over and over again. As it is said in the New Testament, he oftentimes went to different places preaching the same sermon. He didn't need to keep changing the message. They didn't get it the first time. So why keep adding a new message? A lot of times we heap up teachers to ourselves, having itching ears, desiring to hear something new. Now, to the majority of people, this is something new to them because they have not heard it. But when you get back to what is written in this book, you'll find out that the things that I'm saying, they are not new. These things are very old. When you hear the things that are preached on Sunday morning, those things are new. These things, when you read this book, it says, I am Yahweh, I change not. So the same things that is set up here within this Old Testament, you'll find that Yeshua, the Christ, the Messiah, had to walk accordingly to these very things. Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feasts of Yahweh, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Even these are my feasts. And most of these things we have never heard of, because we have been told to keep Easter, Christmas, and we can prove throughout reading of this book that the Messiah was not born on December 25th. Yet people still believe it is a thing that they should keep. Verse 3, 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of rest and holy convocation. You shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of Yahweh in all your dwellings. Now, I know that seems monotonous to you, but consider something. The business Chick-fil-A, they do not keep the correct Sabbath, but they at least keep the incorrect Sabbath the correct way. Now, what do I mean by that? On Sunday, Chick-fil-A is shut down. They don't allow anyone to work. The boss, the owner, does not work on Sunday. Neither can any of the people who work for Chick-fil-A. None of them can work on Sunday because they are keeping it as a Sabbath. And they are at least keeping it the right way. If you are going to keep something as a Sabbath, that means you're supposed to rest on it. That means you're not supposed to work on it. How can you have your servants working if it is a Sabbath? Remember what we read earlier. You or anyone from within your gates, any of your servants, they are not allowed to work on that Sabbath either. Verse 4, these are the feasts of Yahweh, even holy convocations, which you shall proclaim in their seasons. In the 14th day of the first month at even is Yahweh's Passover. Now, we have to go back to what we dealt with in the beginning, the 14th day of the first month. So we know Passover is never in January. So we know that that first month does not coincide with the heathen first month. But if you look at what they call Chinese New Year, it is right within the same New Year that Yahweh has, right between March and April. So you ask yourselves, why is there a problem or a little situation there? Because we have the difference between the heathen setup and what Yahweh has set up. Now, we have the 14th day of the first month at even. Now, to deal with that correctly, we have to go to our Farmer's Almanac. Now, when you go to a Farmer's Almanac, it will list unto you when the new moon is. And The new moon for this year was starting the beginning of the month, was March 11th. And that would be the first day of the month. Now, that is, of course, not the first day of the heathen month, but understand, Yahweh has a lunar calendar system. So the new moon is a new month. You cannot keep Yahweh's holy feasts without observing the new moon. If anybody counted the feast days, there are people that keep the feast days of Yahweh, but they haven't heard of a new moon. Well, I guarantee you, if you go and talk to the people who count up your holy days, I guarantee you they know what the new moon is. Now, they may not have you observe that new moon, but they have to know what that new moon is in order to count Yahweh's feast days. So, according to the Farmer's Almanac and moonconnection.com, March 11th would be the first day. So, you count down from that March 11 going all the way down. Remember, it's the 14th day. So you count all the way down, starting from March 11th. So you have day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. You count all the way down, and it gives you end up at March 23rd. Now, most people will say, well, that should be March 24th. Well, remember, the way you count our days, the way Yahweh has ordained for us to deal with these days, the day starts in the evening. So, on the 23rd, when the sun goes down, that is the 14th day. The 13th day at even starts the 14th day. Remember, Good Friday, I have to keep going back to it. This is in the New Testament. As the sun was going down, it was beginning to be the Sabbath, and they had to take him off that cross after torture stake before the sun completely went down, because then it would be the Sabbath. Okay? So just that quick, you had one day to the next. So as that sun was going down, it was the preparation. And then as the sun was going up, it was the Sabbath. So on that 23rd would be that Passover. Okay? So now we go back to Leviticus chapter 23. So in the 14th day of the first month at even would coincide to the heathen system of March 23rd. Verse 6, and on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto Yahweh. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. Now, so the 15th day would be the next day. So the 23rd of March was Passover. The very next day, March 24th, would be the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Now, when we read in the New Testament, you'll find that the people began to keeping these things as one feast. They began to say Passover, or the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is called the Passover. And we find here, when we deal with the way that Yahweh has set it up, they're two different feasts. So they are not to be counted as the same. So understanding these things, this gives us a count for how we are going to keep the Passover, then the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and then the day after that is first fruits. And understand, a lot of people say that they worship on Sunday because it is the resurrection of Christ. Do you know that Yahweh already had a holy day for the resurrection of Christ? That day was the first fruits. So it is from within the Feast of Unleavened Bread. He was raised within the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and particularly on the day of first fruits, which was the day to make an appearance before Yahweh. And he did make an appearance before Yahweh. So if you are truly going to serve Christ or serve Yahweh in the name of Christ, then you would do that on first fruits. There is already a day for the resurrection of Christ, and it was already a holy day before he was ever even on the scene. Now, as we see from going through all of these things, Yahweh's Holy Sabbath is very important in his calendar system. As we read Leviticus 23, even beginning to discuss his holy feast days, what we found out is he began it with the explanation of the Sabbath. And now to go on and read further on another holy day, we're going to have to incorporate that Sabbath within this. Leviticus chapter 23, and I'm going to start reading at verse 15. And you shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering. This was after first fruits, the Sabbath that came after that, your regular weekly Sabbath. 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Now, even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath shall you number 50 days. Okay, 7 times 7 is 49. The next day is the 50th day. So when we look at these things, we find out that in the New Testament, this feast is called Pentecost. For Penta is a Greek term meaning 50. So it's 7 Sabbaths complete. So that means 7 Saturdays. So Pentecost is always on a first day or a Sunday. And even when Christians keep Pentecost, because there are some people that are really talking about how these things are set up. There are some Christian congregations that are really dealing with the setup that the Creator has given them, and they keep Pentecost, and they keep Pentecost on Sunday, the day that it actually falls on. And what's interesting, at one year, we kept our Pentecost, and it was on the exact same day that a Christian organization kept theirs. Well, you have to ask yourself a question then. How did you arrive at the very same Pentecost that we kept? That means you counted those Sabbaths. They didn't worship on those Sabbaths, but they counted them. And these are things that we have to deal with. We just accept things that people give to us without understanding how did they get that. When we went to school, when we had math class, our teachers would give us a formula where if you're doing multiplication, she would show you how to go and do division, or, you know, vice versa, so that you could prove your answer. So you didn't have to guess whether or not your answer was right. You could go from within a mathematical equation and back up, do it the back way, and you should arrive at the very point that you started. So these are things that we have to be able to deal with. Now, that is Pentecost here in the Old Testament. Let's go to Acts chapter 2 so we can show you that the very same counting system, the very same calendar system that was used in the Old Testament is also used in the New Testament. For you cannot count these days any other way. Acts chapter 2, and we're going to start that at verse 1. And it says, and when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. Why? Because they were set to come there to keep the holy day. That's why they were all with one accord in one place. And Pentecost, meaning 57 Sabbaths plus that one day. Verse 2, and suddenly there came a sound from heaven as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. That was the Spirit. Verse 3, and there appeared unto them cloven tongues like as of fire, and it sat upon each of them. So the Spirit came on the day of Pentecost. And on the day of Pentecost, they were able to speak with tongues. Now, speaking with tongues is speaking in another language. I know we've heard a lot of other things about what speaking in tongues is, but we're going to get to that in another one of our teachings about dealing what specifically speaking in tongues is. But people want to have this gift of speaking in tongues, but they don't want to keep the holy day that's associated with receiving the gift of speaking in tongues. All of these people kept the Sabbath day. They kept the Sabbath day because you had to count all of those Sabbath days to even get to the day of Pentecost to find out what day it was. So what if they were on some other day? Then they were not on gathered together in the day of Pentecost. They would not have been gathered on the correct day. So all of these things, going by Yahweh's calendar system, really does make a difference. All of these things mean something. And as we get down and read further, we'll find out several things. It says, verse 3, and there appeared unto them cloven tongues like as of fire, and it sat upon each of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Ghost. This is the Spirit. And began to speak with other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance. And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. Why? Because they had been spread abroad. So this gift of speaking in tongues was not about somebody speaking some things that they could not understand. They had been spread out. They could not understand one another. They had learned other languages or other tongues. Well, this gift of the Holy Ghost had given them the ability to be able to understand one another. So that's what this was all about. Now we'll keep reading. Verse 7. And they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, Behold, are not all these which speak Galileans? And how hear we every man in our own tongue, in our own language, wherein we were born, Parthians and Medes and Elamites, and dwellers in Mesopotamia and in Judea and in Cappadocia, in Pontus and Asia, Phrygia and Pamphylia, in Egypt, and in the parts of Libya about Cyrene, and strangers of Rome, Jews, and proselytes, Cretes and Arabians. We do hear them speak in our tongues the wonderful works of Elohim. But how was all of this possible? This was all possible by keeping the calendar system that Yahweh, our Elohim, has set up for his people. Yahweh has given us an order that we should walk therein, and this order separates us or sanctifies us. See, this sanctification means separation. When we are given different terms, we make that separation sound like it's a bad thing. Now, segregation also means to be separated, but we don't like the word segregation. So we became desegregated, which means we became de-sanctified because we were de-separated. We were separated, rather, which means that we no longer was separated unto Yahweh. We joined unto the system of the heathen. So now we walk in accordance with the heathen setup, and we are now separated from Yahweh. It's supposed to be the other way around. We are supposed to be separated from the world, but we are supposed to be gathered together unto Yahweh. Okay, because of time restraints, we're going to jump down to the last of the holy days, which is in the 7th month. Now pay attention. In the ending of Yahweh's holy days, it still begs the original setup. Before we even got into Yahweh's holy days, it gave us the Sabbath day, which is the 7th day. Now we're getting toward the last set of holy days, and they're in the 7th month. Leviticus 23 and verse 23, and Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, in the 1st day of the month, shall you have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets and holy convocation. And when you read into the trumpets, you find out that it was the trumpets that gathered the children of Israel. And if you get down into Revelation, you'll find out that it's the trumpets that will actually cause the call to action for judgment upon the earth and will set forth that righteous governmental system on earth. So when people tell you that these things are done away with, the angels are dealing with these things. How can they be done away with? Verse 24, it says, let's jump to 20, let's go to 26. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, also, on the 10th day of this 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. It shall be an holy convocation unto you. You shall afflict your souls, an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. And you shall do no work in that same day, for it is a day of atonement, to make an atonement for you before Yahweh your Elohim. So now we go back to some of the gainsaying that we've heard before, that you can worship on any day. You notice what it's saying here, that you shall not do any work. So that's rest then. So we see it's not about the day that you decide to worship on. It's about resting at the appointed time that Yahweh says rest. If you are indeed a worshiper of the Most High Covenant God of Israel. Verse 29, for whatsoever soul it be that shall not be afflicted in that same day, he shall be cut off from among his people. And when we deal with this thing of atonement, we find out that this is the holiest day of the year. For what do you think Christ did in shedding his blood? In being that Passover lamb, he made an atonement for our sins. This is a very, very holy day. So now we have within the 7th month, so you have the setup of 7 holy days. Before he even gives us a description, he gives us the Sabbath. So now in the 7th month, you have one starting the month, letting you know that this is a holy month. The month begins with the holy day of trumpets. Then you have your day of atonement. So now let's go on from there. Verse 33. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of this 7th month shall be the feast of tabernacles for 7 days unto Yahweh. On the first day shall be a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. And there we go again. Once again, he's saying, do not do any work. So all the people that tells you, oh, you can worship on any day, he keeps pointing back to rest. See? So it's not a big mystery why the nations are not keeping the holy days, because the nations refuse to rest on the days that Yahweh has set forth. It says on the first day shall be a holy convocation. Verse 36, 7 days you shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. And on the 8th day shall be an holy convocation unto you. You shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. It is a solemn assembly. You shall do no servile work therein. Here we go again. He keeps going over these things over and over and over for a reason. Now, I'm going to jump to Zechariah chapter 14 so that we can see that these things are forever. All right. So we're talking about this Feast of Tabernacles, which is a 7-day feast within the 7th month. So consider that. Among the holy setup of things, there's 7 holy days. And on the 7th month, it is a 7-day feast. You cannot get around that. Zechariah chapter 14 and verse 16. And it shall come to pass. Now this is after all of this great Armageddon, that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem, so it's speaking of that great battle, shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, Yahweh of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. These things will be kept in a perfect kingdom. And it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, Yahweh of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. And so now he's letting us know that if the people will not observe this Feast of Tabernacles, they're going to receive the plagues. This is why the nations don't believe that they have to keep it right now, because they are not being punished for not observing these things. But if we say that we love the Creator like we claim to, then we must love him in deed. We must love him in spirit. And to do all of those things, that means keeping the setup of how he has laid these things down for us to walk therein. Now, I thank you guys for tuning in. That's all that we can get to today. We ask that you would tune in to our Sabbath day stream. We stream Sabbath at 1 o'clock on Saturday, what we call Saturday, which is the 7th day. And we also have a Bible study at 7 o'clock on the 4th day, which we call Wednesday. So you can tune in live on the internet to watch those things at www.theuci.org. We thank you for tuning in to Entering the Veil. My name is Isaac Ben Israel. Thank you for tuning in. Shalom. Yeah. Here we go, man. They say blindness and borders happen in Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles come in. It's almost time, man. Everything about to change. That's for real. The truth about to be revealed. Come on. Life as we know it is about to change. It's about to change. It's about to change. It's about to change. Life as we know it is about to change. It's about to change. It's about to change. It's about to change. It's about that time that the whole world find out who he is, putting unbearable burdens on the backs of our kids. I finally found out why they hate me so. Got me locked up in cells and won't let me go. Separate me from my woman, multiply no more. Same thing was done in Egypt by the rule of Pharaoh. They say this people Israel, multiply like the sands. Let's kill it firstborn and tie all their hands. Lest they become better than us. Uproar and revolt and scatter our guts. So on came the conspiracy to kill Israel. 2006 up in America, their plan is well. Got my sister popping birth control just like Skittles. Telling them to avoid what they carry in the middle. My people, a nation that be scattered and peeled. Soon the curse gonna be lifted, we gon' all know the deal. That's right. Life as we know it is about to change. It's about to change. It's about to change. It's about to change. Life as we know it is about to change. It's about to change. It's about to change. It's about to change.
Why do the heathens rage? And the people them imagine vain things. The kings of the earth and the rulers.